So there's this sort of explosive growth being seen around these companies, and a lot of it has to do with the fact that this is actual profit, this is real money. We're seeing a sort of honest-to-goodness explosion of success in this space, and it's very exciting to be a part of. Unrelated to anything, here's me waiting out in the freezing cold for a Nintendo Wii on launch day. Never gonna do that again, but I just wanted to remind you guys, that's me, I got a face and all. So I guess the bigger question now to answer is what exactly do we mean when we refer to a social game? Why am I pretentious, quote unquote, whenever I say the term? And the main problem is it's actually a pretty terrible name for this genre. For two reasons. One, it was already taken. Back in 2004, when Facebook was still Harvard exclusive, and people still even knew what Friendster was, game designers Eric Zimmerman and Katie Salen published this amazing textbook on game design called Rules of Play. And in this textbook, they discussed these sort of childhood developmental games focused on so much of the intricate social underpinnings of our grade school classes. These are games like Red Rover, right? Two groups of school children, or I guess adults, in this case, stand in line, clutching hands. One group calls over an individual from the other group, and that individual tries to run forward and break through the line of people. Games like Telephone, which involves sort of intimate whispering between one member of a chain to another, to sort of study the disintegration of information over a long enough line, sort of signal-to-noise ratio, if you will. And 7-Up, that ultimate of grade school or elementary games of, will I get picked, will I not get picked? Who picked me, I don't even know. There's just so much of this sort of energy. These games involve these decisions that carry a definite social weight for all their childhood, adolescence energy. There's a definite social message being sent in all these games, and strategies that had the potential to really buck the trends of what was inferred by adolescent communication and contact. So for all these reasons, for all this passion about these social games, it's very, very difficult for me to refer to Social City as a social game, as much as I love it, or Tiki Resort as a, quote, social game. And even Super Farkle, which I adore, these are not the social games that Eric Zimmerman and Katie Salen were talking about. And I think the thing that we need to realize here is to just sort of mentally make sure that when we're referring to social games, we know that we're actually just referring to social network games. This term isn't intended to be loaded with the detritus of sort of social interactions between people. Realistically, we're just talking about games that exist on a social network. And the only reason we call them social games is just because social network games doesn't roll off the tongue like one would hope. But this isn't necessarily to say it's a bad thing. Social networks are quite powerful in their own right. In fact, social networks like Facebook and MySpace are actually part of a much larger category of internet media, contributing to a trend that in the past we've sort of referred to as information compulsion. It's this great term that I'd love to bring back into our vernacular. Now this is a category that also includes services like Dig, Tumblr, and Twitter, but it also includes multimedia sites like YouTube and Flickr, and even your favorite blogs and news sites. And the key to sort of all of these services, the reason why we have this overarching category, why these fit into this notion of information compulsion, is this idea of newness. Each service sort of highlights information in reverse chronological order, and they give priority usually to newest information, or sometimes a cocktail of newest information added to most popular information. And all of these sites, we adore them, we love them. And the question is sort of why? And why do we adore these things so much? And the answer is because we're bored. Because for one reason or another, what we're doing is not interesting, or it's too engaging, or too time-consuming, and we just don't want to be bothered. We don't want to be doing what we're doing at that very moment, and we sort of pine for distraction. And it turns out these distractions, one, are plentiful on the internet, and two, can be very, very, very addictive. if a website is sort of easy to check, then it becomes easy to check into again and again and again. And so you end up with this sort of loop of information compulsion. You check Boing Boing or Dig or Twitter for new information. If there's any, great, you read it. If not, you close it. And then at some point later in the future, you're going to recheck it. And the key to this whole loop is actually the sort of delta between steps 2 and 3 that I'm indicating with a line here. It's this unusual, weird, anomalous space. The larger that delta becomes, the more time that passes before you recheck, the more likely it is that there will be something new there. The more potential there becomes imbued in that space for something different or something new for you to check. So we let time pass. We wonder if and when something new will appear, when something different will happen. And this sort of magical delta of not knowing, of this compulsion breeding attitude, can sort of be referred to by a different name, which I like to refer to as your refrigerator door, ladies and gentlemen. This age-old joke of, does the light stay on when you close the fridge? You can't tell because the second you close the fridge, you can't see it anymore. So you don't know for a fact whether or not that light is still on. And because this is the way a fridge is designed. So we can't really ever know for sure if it's off. I'd also like to take this fairly weak metaphor for a moment, just a teensy step further, and suggest that whenever your fridge door is closed, there may or may not be this sort of tiny kingdom of perishables interacting with one another, this sort of fridgedom, if you will, existing within your fridge that you were unaware of. So the question is, whenever you close your fridge, you don't know what's happening inside. And the second you open your fridge, you're aware, but the second you close it again, you're sort of back in that potential space. It's Schrodinger-esque in a way, but I prefer to refer to it as a refrigerator door because it's just so much more fun. Okay, you can ignore that last little divergence, but here's the basic idea. If you're playing a social game, the fridge is open. You're creating interactions. You're planting crops. You begin cooking a dish. You're achieving a new high score in Bejeweled Blitz. You're beginning construction on a building in Social City. You're asking a friend to help you, or you've completed your turn in a game like Scrabulous or Lexius. The second you close that fridge door, these actions sort of resonate in the space, and things continue to happen. So if you've planted crops, those crops continue to grow, your dish continues to cook, your friends may or may not be trying to triumph over your high score, your building might finish building, your friend may or may not respond to your request for help, or they might take their next turn in that game of chess or that game of Scrabble that you're playing. So the result is your time away from the game is almost as important as the time that you spend there with the game. You spend this idle time when you're not playing the game actually thinking about the game. And it's this tiny step that actually goes a very long way to make social games almost feel magical in a way. Even when you aren't playing, the game sort of continues on. Stakes may change, environments may shift, but the game world keeps on spinning, it keeps on beating. In a way, these games sort of have this sort of lifeblood of their own, this sort of heartbeat of their own. And I guess that's the short answer of why I find social games so fascinating. And that's about it for my talk. So I hope it was enjoyable for you guys. Thank you very much for your time, and enjoy the rest of your festival. Thanks.